Well, I guess we'll get started then. Welcome to the I'm Out Here show and podcast. It's going to be coming to you on YouTube and see Amazon, where you can listen to music. You can pull up your podcast there. Spotify, Apple Music's going to carry it. All the major platforms. So, pretty excited about that. We'll be talking about a handful of different things from once I did leave the hospital and got home and the challenges that I faced there, um, getting back to work, getting back to the workforce, which was a triumph in itself. Um, kind of hitting a crossroads at a certain point. Um, when that employment ended, and then what has kind of culminated since. Um, so let's jump into that after I get a sip here of water. Mm. I'll tell you what, bear with me, and I am going to go uh, get the water that I want, not just. Like I said, I'm doing this in my home, and I can't just leave everything set up all the time. I do have to have a normal ish living room during the downtime. Otherwise, uh, it's cluttered and it gets on my nerves. So, but anyway, um, shout out again, always, to Rambler Sparkling Water and the wild cherry flavor, which still continues to be my favorite. But Rambler is out of Austin, Texas, and I'm telling you, fans, friends, and family alike, y'all help me get sponsored by them, and I'm going to slide this down into the currently official I'm Out Here uh, koozie available on the website I'mOutHere.com /shop. Okay, so picking up where I left off last time, which was, uh, I'm still laying there in the hospital and not quite under my own power yet. I've um, I've had to have difficult conversations with you know some friends and family, and and also my son, which uh, ultimately became my why, my everything. I think everybody out there is pretty familiar with having a why. Um, Previous jobs and things, we've had like a why board or something, um, and you put you know pictures or cut out words of things that are the closest and most special to you. And of course, that's my kid. Now, so upon getting out of the hospital, and I was I was a little bit I don't want to say stubborn. I wasn't stubborn, and I wasn't a jerk patient or anything. I wasn't I didn't give anybody a hard time, but I was very black and white, yes and no. Give me direct answers. No sugarcoating things. No, I remember at one point they came into the room, and this was before things had started to bounce back, thanks to some of the medications that they had put me on. I mean, it was a bunch of them. Um, they had come into the room and told me that, they were going to have me meet with palliative care, um, and they were going to help me feel comfortable and all this. And I thought, oh, this sounds very familiar. Much like when I found out that my mother had lung cancer, and the hospital staff was speaking to us about certain things. And um, well, anyway, neither here nor there. They were talking to me about, essentially hospice. This palliative care will make you comfortable. And I said, no, we're not going to do that. I remember telling them, we're not, if anyone comes in this room talking to me about being, palliative care, making me comfortable, they're kicked out. They're not allowed in this room. They want to come in and tell me, hey, if you don't do X, Y, and Z, you're dead. Then yeah, they're welcome in here, because that's what I needed. That's what I knew I needed deep down. And that continued throughout the process of getting to where I did leave the hospital. And even on my way out the door, which is, all that to say this, even on my way out the door, I was so, I had already kind of latched on to, I didn't know exactly what it was at the time. I felt that it was hope, just a lot of hope. But it wound up being this determination and this drive that, I'd never really had before. And so they said, on the day that I was going to get to go home, they said, we'll bring you a wheelchair and roll you down to the exit. We'll get you in the car and y'all get on the way home. And I said, no, I'll walk. And they said, no, you won't. And remember, I had to learn how to walk again in the hospital. They had actually sent like this physical therapist who was kind of like an army doc or something. He was rough. He was very direct, and that, like I said, that's what I needed. And his assistant was kind of the same. And I remember they would put this belt around me that kind of would grab around my waist, and he would hold me up with a strap in the back, and she would hold on to these handle things on the side, and right there in my face, right there in my face. And they're leading me down the hallway trying to get me to take each little step, and that was kind of wild. But they said, remember, you had some difficulty walking. We can't have you taking a fall on your way out. You don't injure yourself. That wouldn't make much sense. And of course, it's the hospital looking out for their insurance policy on that one. I had already been. I believe I'd gotten up and stood to take some showers at one point. Um, with help, but I told them I'm walking out of here. I'm not going to use no wheelchair. And they said, well, we're going to bring the wheelchair up. You're going to get in it, and we're going to wheel you down. And I told the guy that was driving the wheelchair, because they wouldn't even let me drive it, steer it, wheel it, whatever you do. They wouldn't even let me do that. I told the guy, when we get down there to that door, stop, put on the brakes. I'm getting out of this thing, and I'm walking out. I'm physically walking out of the hospital. I walked in here. I will walk out. And that being said, they're sending me home. I have to walk inside my house in 5 minutes anyway. Why wouldn't you want me to fall at the hospital where you can help me instead of in my yard where, anyway, I know. I go on and I can ramble on those things, but when I got home, uh, things were definitely not funny. There was no humor. Determination had turned into a bit of distress because realizing that the hospital is a place that can help you if things go wrong. You know, especially if you're there, they can help you very quickly. I didn't have that at home, and that they didn't send me home just without any kind of instruction. They told me, this is what you need to be doing with your diet. This is what you need to be doing with your physical activity. Because I was incredibly weak and I had not been eating, great solid food for a little bit, and so things were going to be very difficult. Now, mind you, I did have a person in the home with me, fairly steady for I would say the first couple weeks, but then after that, this person had very much made a determination that so long as I don't die right now or within like the next few months, they'll just be slowly working their way out of the picture. I didn't know that, but I think I did mention in the last episode that I felt that I would be alone, and really that sense came from uh, this person in the home is not a medical professional. They're not a nurse. They're going to try their best, but really it wasn't anything more than helping with organizing medications. And so I'm very much trying to mentally prepare to take care of things on my own. But at the same time, in the back of my mind, have these very real fears of being alone and hallucinations starting back up. That would be, uh, very bad. That would be terrifying because I don't know for sure. It can always be your mind playing tricks on you, especially in shadows and things. But that's actually where my hallucinations would manifest the most was in darker areas um, and shadows, corners of the room that were dark and things. There would be either someone standing there or maybe it was. I remember there was always this cat. If there was chairs that had shadows under them in a room, say an arranged seating area like a table or something like that, and there's a few chairs and they have shadows under them and stuff like that. There would be this cat that wasn't really there, just kind of how cats do. They wander in between and they kind of work slalom around back and forth in between the legs of things and stuff. And it would just be doing that for hours and hours if I were say in fact in this house that I'm sitting in right now. There's dark corners that don't stay very well lit at times. There's odd little nooks or something. The floor plan is really strange in here, so it was a constant fear. Um, and then on to the weakness. Um, to get to the bathroom, not to shower or something like that, but uh, to get up and go to the restroom and make it on time. You know, um, was was not a guarantee. We had some close calls. Uh, um, you can laugh if you want to at that. I, I would. I did. I'm sure. And that went on for. Now the hallucinations didn't. I do recall that there were some that would kind of linger around a little bit, or I would think maybe I saw someone that wasn't there, and I didn't know for sure, and I didn't want to ask because eventually the people that you're around are gonna get pretty concerned if days and weeks later you're asking, hey, do you see that person over there? Like, do you see him? Because I see somebody, and I just want to make sure you see it. They're going to get so tired of that, incredibly tired of that. And, well, eventually they did. And within about, I, I want to say about a month after getting home, maybe a month and a half, I was very alone. It was me and not Dozer, but it was me and a dog. Dozer is actually with me for this episode. Uh, well, I say he's with me. He's behind me, sleeping on the couch, but he is on set with us. On set, listen to me. We're pros. We're pros around here. Um, so the hallucinations they didn't continue. They didn't linger past much more than I would say a week or two. But within that month and a half or 2 months, I'd say at the absolute most, I did wind up very alone, and it was just me and another dog. And um, I was still under the advice of the doctor to not drive. I was not trusted to operate a vehicle, which is fair. My fine motor skills had had come back very well. I actually played a lot of Yahtzee, both in the hospital, from right there in my bed, or once I actually was able to get up and go to this little table. Yahtzee was incredibly helpful because I have to pick up the die individually, and also have to write down my score. I'm having to think. I'm having to do math and things like that. So, which math is not my strong suit. A few of you out there that know me really well probably chuckled when I said I did math. Um, so once, and I say I was alone, that quick. There would be, say, maybe a weekend or something that someone would come back, or but that was it had gotten to the point to where I didn't see anyone for, I believe, the longest stretch was nearly 2.5 months straight. I was actually just in the home alone, and I didn't see or speak to another human being. And getting someone on the phone was actually difficult at this time, and I don't know exactly what happened there, but I do recall some conversations and some moments. Uh, being rather difficult, because I would reach out and say, hey, I'm at home. I need to go get some food. Maybe I reach out to an ex coworker, from back in law enforcement days or something like that. Or, um, there are some times that I reached out to some people that are very, very close to me. And I would say, hey, I got $20. I'll cover your fuel if you can stop by and grab me a pizza. And it's well, I'm actually already headed out of town or whatever. Okay, cool. And I didn't want to be a burden or nothing like that. Or I'd reach out to someone and say, hey, I could use a ride to get to the gas station to, uh, you know, just go grab some orange juice or some milk or something. You don't even have to take me all the way to the store. Or maybe I do need to go get groceries. Um, Ice cream quickly went off the diet because turns out that if you have to walk about, I don't know exactly how many blocks it is. I'm just going to say it was about 10 blocks, maybe just somewhere around there. Uh, More than I should have been walking at the time. It still wasn't even a year of me being out of the hospital. And, here I am walking back from the grocery store later in the evening to go because it would just be hot. It was in the summer and it was hot. But I would still have to sit down and take breaks. Now, I'd gone on like that, and even if I was having difficulty getting other people to come by, and a lot of people just probably didn't understand. One of those conversations I remember having was with someone, and I told him, it's been such a long time. It's been so long since I've actually interacted face to face with another human, um, because I would just stay locked up in the house. I couldn't go anywhere necessarily, whether it be I wasn't feeling good or anxiety or depression. Was still kind of a real bad problem there. Uh, I said, it's been so long. I really could use someone stopping by and just poke me in the chest and let me know that this reality is real because the hallucinations that I'd gone through for days on end can make you question reality if the circumstances line up just right. And I certainly did start to question my reality there for a little bit. Um, so not only was I physically alone, but mentally, at the time, I really didn't have a lot of people to reach out to, and well, I guess not really anyone. And then um, I was permanently left alone in the home. The significant other at the time, who had spent some time showing up for a little bit there at the first month or two, and then sporadically, and then to where it was almost I think almost 3 months completely without any hardly any contact, honestly. Uh, Once that came to an end, now I felt very, very, very alone. I mean, completely alone. And it created this really bad situation because I'd been so reliant on one singular person that all of my eggs were in that basket, and my meaningful connections, on the other hand, had started to suffer. Um, and Man, that created a really bad situation. Um, and I was starting to lose some of the support that was helping me stay within the home, things like that. What little money that I did have was very much dwindling away rapidly, and so it was time to get back to work. And when I say that it was time to get back to work, I knew that because I'd been in the oil field before. I'd sold cars. I'd been a plumber. I had worked in, well, I worked with a plumber. I wasn't a licensed plumber, but I'd worked with HVAC, uh, just the list goes on and on. I knew that none of those were going to fit into the uh, the plan anymore, just based on physical ability and things like that. And so I started thinking about you know skills that I had from back in earlier days, maybe even before I had actually gotten into the workforce. And one of those skills was uh, being pretty computer savvy, understanding quite well how the internet works, and also what makes things sell. And that came from, this will age me a little, but when MySpace was the you know networking hub of the internet, uh, that was where I first got, or not, well, I take that back. That would have been incorrect. I had been reintroduced to coding, and now, of course, that was just basic HTML with MySpace there. Uh, but earlier than that, I had been exposed to coding through my half brother, who had worked at NASA for a good stretch, and then a couple of the large computer companies, Dell and HP, Compaq. Uh, but I knew that I had some, and of course we were now in 2000, uh, you know, the early part of 2022. And I did, on the previous episode, I did actually get that wrong. The health skit, well, the diagnosis, everything, all of that, the summer that all of it occurred was 2021. Uh, I, so much time has passed since then, and so much has gone on, so much has happened. But with those skills, and also, understanding that I did have a sales background, and I was a people person. I had met, dozens of people, strangers, daily through law enforcement, and also being a musician. You meet tons and tons of people that you don't know. You act like you know them, and then you may never see them again. But if you do see them, you kind of know their face, and you act like you know them again. Um, and there was this company that was kind of on the up, and on the coming up in Sulphur Springs, and so I looked into it, and I thought, well, I've got sales skill. I understand. At this point, I had continued learning a bit with the computer sciences and things, and uh, just on my own, not anything, no formal training, no certifications or anything, but saw some opportunity within the website and different things. Well, I laid out this plan that if I could get in the door and just sell the products, it was an e-commerce company, and it was products that I had never really sold before. But if you're a salesman, it's not the product; it's the customer. You're just justifying their purchase, and so that's what I lined up this plan to go in and become a salesperson for this company, understand their product, get to know the ins and outs of it, what the hell this product is, how it works, and how the masses can apply it to their lives. And it didn't take very long. I say it didn't take very long. Getting employed there was difficult because the application system was terrible. The onboarding system was terrible. The hiring process was terrible. Um, it was very much a startup, and they very much needed help. But I did go to work there. I did get a job, and I did start in sales, and it was not very far from home. So if I didn't want to choose to walk that day, I could catch a ride with actually one of my neighbors who I had known beforehand, and uh, kind of introduced me to the existence of this place, I believe. But now a very dear friend of mine. Um, I could get a ride, and I think it was just a few months after that. It couldn't have been very long. Purchased. I flew to Kansas City, Missouri, and purchased my van that I still have right now, and drove it home. Um, but it didn't take long when I got hired there and went to work. Um, Actually answering the phone and making some sales. It did not take very long to get towards the top of that sales board as a top performer, and that's when I started to lean on the marketing crew, which was a skeleton crew at the time. Just actually just like one guy who monitored the website and did his best. And I say guy, he was a kid. I think he was like 19 at the time, looking over a $15 million website. And I started leaning on them, and I wound up with a job, an interview. Um, and then I transferred into the marketing department there, and that's when things really took off. I was able to kind of cut loose and use my skills that I knew I had. And before a couple of years had gone by, it had scaled up to over 150, 170 million dollars in annual revenue, which was you know incredible, and it had expanded into more of a conglomerate than it is just a couple companies, because it was supposed to be two separate companies all along, and kind of wasn't, but kind of is, and still isn't, but still is. Anyway, um, that's not a dig at all, um, because of what I'm about to say next. Um, Pardon me. I I really excelled at that job, and I developed a lot of the skills that I already possessed. I developed them further and really nurtured them, and we were on track uh, to be what I had envisioned as this rock star marketing group, and within the company, and um, it didn't work out. Um, I'm not going to go into too much of the detail. I On this platform, I don't believe. There was some bureaucracy and other things, and it just the politics didn't land in my favor. And in the middle part of February of 2025, this year, I was let go from the company, and that it did away with the routine that I'd established. This it was a little bit of a hit to the confidence. Um, but I had essentially walked myself back from the dead and up to this place to go to work. And for 2.5 years, really busted my ass putting in more hours than I was even clocking in for. And to be told some of the things I was told and for some of the things to go the way that they did, it was not not tasteful in my mind. And uh, well, anyway, I digress. And like I said, I won't go into too much of that here on this platform. Now, when that happened, uh, I quickly evaluated the situation around me and realized this it's not so much that I've been fired, it's that I've been freed. I've 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 enhanced my capabilities, I've developed my skills, my portfolio, these are good things. And so I took that and I've poured everything into I'm out here. This. And that's based on not just my, it just it's not a pet project that I just came up with. There's very very important people around me that continue to push me and let me know that I'm doing good. And I remember distinct conversations with people saying, well, I'm him hawing around throwing this thing out and seeing if it catches any traction. I really want to help some folks. And because I've got friends that are suffering from alcoholism, and it's um, it's important to me to share this stuff and put it out there to try to communicate part of it to them to because those conversations don't really come up. And so if they catch up on some of this, at least they know some of the parts that they didn't know before. And so now with I'm out here and the community that I'm wanting to establish, hoping to establish, it's not just a want. It's there's a lot of people that uh, need to hear the story or to just be um, uh, have their path adjusted a little bit, on their own accord. A lot of decisions you can make for yourself out there and do a lot of good. It takes some being honest with yourself, some self assessments being done, and being really really honest and truthful with yourself. And so now, I hope to be able to continue this, and I hope to be able to grow it and reach just more and more people. And I know that with that, more support will come in, and at some point, at some rate, it will become a way that I can. It'll support itself, and it will support how much time and effort I need to put into it, which is an incredible amount. And just for all of you to stick around and either watch or listen or, go to the Facebook and give it a like and a follow or, when you do see me out in public to, people that say, hey, you're doing great, or the direct messages I get, the emails I get, um, when I see a piece, see a peach, see a piece of merchandise sell from the store online, or when someone asks me, hey, you got any hats on you? I would like to buy a hat. every little bit of that is just reassurance. And when you go from being told you can't walk out of here to then being at home and having, you know, triumphed over that, and then to be told that you have support, and then to find out very abruptly that you don't. I eventually stopped looking for that support to focus itself on me, and began to put out the energy that I knew was necessary and that people needed. And I can't remember where I heard it or where I read it, but there was something said at some point. It's not that you are supposed to be cared for and made to, feel loved and, protected or supported, but instead, and bear with me, but instead, you are supposed to love and support and understand, others. And so that's the energy that I have been, putting out as best I can ever since. And sure, in hopes that, that same energy comes back to me. I think that that's completely fair. So going forward, uh, it's going to be, very important for me to keep doing these things and keep sharing, my story. And on the next episode, we'll go back into what led up to the sickness, but not so much right there immediately before it, but more so how alcoholism came to be for me, where it came from in the first place. So stick around for that. Um, that's all I've really got. I appreciate you hanging out and listening or watching for this long. And I'll see you on the next one. For now, I'm out here. Peace. Hey, y'all, it's Jeremy. Thanks for sticking around. And if any part of this message resonates with you or you think it might resonate with someone else, be sure to stop by the website www.imOutHere.com or just check on the link in the description below. For now, I'm out here. Peace.